When you start looking for new premises, there's a lot of choice, but the first stage is to work out exactly what you want. Spring4 helps you decide how much space you'll need and where you should be located, and advises you on how to keep your property costs down.
Hi John, it's Ed Galvin here from Spring4. I've got a client who's interested in the second floor of...
Spring4 has access to information about all the available space in London, and outside London too. So whatever your needs are, the team will put together a shortlist for you. Good research is vital.
It's clearly important to look at these buildings ourselves to ensure that we have not missed any opportunity or that we have identified any of the risks or issues around a building. You cannot do that from your desk. You have to go and look at these buildings, and that is something that we do before we have even discussed them with our clients. The area of the atria base needs to be measured separately. That's being valued at a different rate.
Once you've made a final decision, Spring4 negotiates the deal for you and also checks all the details, the environmental surveys, the building warranties, insurances, all the things which could cost you money if you haven't clarified them.
Once we have all the information, we can limit your liabilities so you don't end up bearing cost for things you shouldn't do, such as defective cladding, lifts that don't work, or air conditioning that's broken or temperamental.
Then Spring4 works with your lawyers to draw up the lease correctly and make sure you have the flexibility to move when you need to, with the right length of lease and break clauses.
We're going to start here and make sure that his quote of areas is accurate.
There are many ways to make the most of your space. You might want partitioned offices or large open plan areas.
7.732.
You might need meeting rooms or secure areas. Spring4 can look after all this, from the start of the search until you move in, to make sure the building will meet all your needs. Buildings like these need to be painted every 3 years. They look great, but the extra expense can have a big impact on your bank balance. It can add £5 per square foot to your costs each year. But glass can sometimes be just as expensive, depending on how the windows are cleaned. Service charges can vary from £6 to £20 per square foot. It's important to know about all these hidden costs.
Other than rent, we will check the rates, the service charges, insurance premiums to ensure that all the costs are captured and there are no nasty surprises. In addition, we will check the floor areas to make sure they are correctly measured in accordance with the standard regulations.
Many of these costs can be negotiated before you move in, but even when you're already occupying a building, there are still ways to cut your overheads. Spring4 carries out rent reviews for many tenants.
Our task is to reduce their rent to as low as possible to reflect the current market.
When you're a tenant, there can be other unexpected costs. If there's a dilapidations clause in your lease, you might be obliged to carry out repairs. This building clearly needs attention, but who should pay? The problems might have been there before the tenant signed the lease. That's why due diligence is so important, so the tenant knows what their responsibilities are. But even a healthy building can cost you money under a dilapidations clause if you aren't careful.
Under the terms of a tenant's lease, the tenant may be required to remove the existing partitions, recarpet, change the ceiling, alter the lights and any other electrical services. This can add a considerable cost to the tenant's departure from his offices.
So it's vital to get good advice on your property from the start. That way you can control your costs and keep them low. Thousands of disputes between landlords and tenants end up in court each year. You don't want to find yourself here at the High Court just because you want to move out of your building. Spring4 believes the best way to avoid an expensive legal argument is to make sure your lease will suit your needs.
When we settle the terms for a lease, we try and make absolutely sure that those things which are important to you, the flexibility of the lease, the break clauses, the condition in which you have to hand it back, are all preset at the start so that you know exactly where you are.
If you do decide to exercise a break clause or end your lease, the timing is crucial. If you forget to give the keys back on the right day, it's a simple mistake which could cost you thousands of pounds.
Break clauses are part of the legal document, the contract that you make with the landlord. Generally, time is of the essence in serving the notice to exercise it. If you're 1 day late, that could mean you're caught for another 5 years.
Ending your lease doesn't have to be expensive, and Spring4 can help you plan ahead so you don't end up paying more than you need to.